Hi, welcome to Divine Boss Babe. I'm Heidi Lynn, spirituality, life, and business coach and intuitive energy healer. And this channel is dedicated to serving high achieving women who are working to be the best versions of themselves and ready to let go of trauma and pain and ready to step into that authentic, most empowered version of themselves. My mission is to inspire and empower women to be their most authentic version. And so they can live a life full of happiness, peace, and passion and making a fuck ton of money. So, with that being said, this Reiki session today is going to be about self-love. But first, before I jump into that, I want to talk about self-love because a lot of people aren't quite sure what that means. And so I wanted to give you my perspective of self-love. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in a dysfunctional family of alcoholics. I then ran into the arms of my narcissistic abuser and dealt with emotional and mental abuse for 10 years, and then it turned into physical violence, and then I just called it quits because I needed to do what was best for me and my daughter, because my daughter was a year and a half at that age when she saw it starting to turn physical. And I don't know, it was just a trigger to me to just leaving and figuring my life out from there. But for me, it's been a long journey of self-discovery to find out who I am, what am I here to do, and I wasn't sure what self-love was. So I would do what I thought other people wanted of me. So that way I could make them happy. So that way I could, be validated by them so they would like me, acknowledge my presence. And it was always at the sacrifice of like my own well being. And I would always say yes to things when I didn't really want to, but I would really feel bad if I said no. And so I would always just overcommit and I'd feel bad, and then I would have to find reasons of, excuses of how I couldn't fulfill that obligation. So I was constantly canceling, and it was a vicious cycle. I went into depression. I was dealing with a lot of social anxiety. I wasn't trusting people. And what it really came down to is because I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my value. I didn't know my worth. I just thought that what other people thought of me was really what mattered instead of what I thought about myself. And I would hear this concept of what people would say, like, oh, you need to know who you are, or you need to, the only opinion you need to think or worry about is your own. I'm like, okay, well, that never really landed with me until I just hit a certain point in my life where I was just fed up of like taking care of everybody else and not having enough time for me, not doing the things that I wanted to do for me and enjoying my like time for me. I was always just so busy being a mom, being a partner, just taking care of everybody else. And I hit this point of like burnout and just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? What am I really achieving if I'm taking care of everybody else and I'm working this 9 to 5 job and I don't even know what even really lights me up? And I started trying to discover what that was. And ultimately, what I tell everybody is like Reiki was like my turning point. Once I found Reiki, it was like everything changed. It was like the catalyst to my transformation and to my true deep healing. My very first Reiki session was just so transformational. It was really amazing. I don't know. It's like that's it's not as descriptive as I wish I could say, but it was the most amazing thing I'd ever experienced in my entire life. Once I had my very first Reiki session and I was released of all this emotional pain and trauma. And from that point, I knew that was my mission, is to help people through energy healing. And through that, like through time, I've developed my psychic abilities. So now I'm an intuitive energy healer. So that way I can speak to people's spirit guides and then tell them, hey, these are like the messages that are coming through. And I've been able to tell people messages that they were basically getting reinforced from their doctor about how they needed to take care of themselves, things that they needed to let go of. One of somebody I was doing a reading for, it was like, you need to write a letter to your grandpa. That's what came through. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. I have that on my to-do list for today. And then it was within a week later he passed away. And so she was able to actually heal from that. And she was so grateful that I had encouraged her to do that, because she wrote that letter and she was able to have some closure from that, some healing from that. And then I was doing a reading for somebody, and I picked up that they were going to have a client named Michelle, and or the name came up as Michelle, and I had inquired to her what that meant, and she's like, well, I don't know, my cousin's name is Michelle. And I was like, well, maybe she needs your help, or maybe she needs something, whatever. Well, she ended up being, it was her cousin, and then ended up reaching out for help for her, like hiring her as her client. So I thought that was just really fascinating. So this whole process is just tapping into my intuition, and like just relating messages that I get from the spirit, from the divine. Like, it's super exciting and really fun for me to just see how it plays out in people's lives and how it resonates with them, and just to see that like light on their face, just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing that you were able to, how did you know that, So anyway, so that's been a passion of mine. And then just empowering women, because I know what it's like to be hurt and feeling like questioning yourself all the time, and feeling like just you're constantly in self-doubt, and you have thoughts, but then you're always like, oh well, what if I say something stupid, what would they think of me? Or like you just don't want to like say no to people because you feel really bad about it. I've been there, I know what it's like, and it freaking sucks. And so I'm on this mission to help women get over that, to heal, to let it go and say no. And no is a complete sentence. There's nothing else to say, okay? So to get to that point, you have to love yourself. And so I was like, okay, when I was tuning in and asking the divine, like, what do I need to be doing with my Reiki? Like, what channel, like, what video do I need to be making next? And it was like self-love. So I was like, okay, there's a reason. So I'll just do a video on self-love. Obviously, people need it. Um, to find self love, so here's the coaching. Okay, so to find self love, you need to really tune in and find out who you are, and like get down a piece of paper, write down the things that you like doing, write down the things that you love doing, so that way you know what value you bring to this world. So that way you're not constantly questioning yourself, or if someone disagrees with you, you're not doubting yourself, because you know who you are. You know what you stand for. You know that you can have a backbone and you can stand up for what it is, because you're like, you're definitely certain and what it is that you're willing to tolerate and not tolerate, and who you are and your values and all that stuff. And that's a part of just self-love. Oh, I keep going on, but I won't. But if you're struggling with self love, if you're struggling to find out who you are, if you're struggling to find out your purpose or speaking up, if you just are finding that you just don't have any self confidence, and you're over it, and you really just envy those people who can, walk on a stage and confidently hold themselves and speak to a crowd, or if you are envious of, these influencers that you see and you just wish that you could do that and you just don't know how, talk to me, reach out to me, seriously. Like, I would love to create an action plan on how you could create those steps to achieve that. Okay, so my hair's a little crazy, but anyway, so um without further ado, I'm going to get into the Reiki. So get into a quiet space. You don't need to have anything, like, you don't have to be staring at the screen. I'm going to be having my eyes closed anyway. So, but the Reiki knows no boundaries of time or distance. So the Reiki energy is being transmitted from me to you through the screen, which is amazing. Um, and if you want a private Reiki session with me, reach out, let me know. If you want coaching, reach out, let me know. I'd be happy to help you. But anyway, so just know that you can just have it sitting next to you, and you can be doing other things, but I really just would prefer that you sit there and you just try to relax. Try to just close your eyes. If you meditate, that's cool. If you don't meditate, just try to sit there and meditate, or your version of it, or sitting there just being in contemplation. Okay, so set your intention that you want to discover self love. Um, and then you don't have to do anything. The Reiki's still working for you. And then after the session, just drink some water. But just seriously, get into a place of just quiet, okay? And then after the session, let me know what you thought. Let me know how you're doing, and any ahas that came up for you. I'd really love to know that too. So, without further ado, I will start the Reiki session now, okay? So there's the Reiki for you. Let me know how you're doing. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you see any, or if you if you know anybody that could use this, please share it with them. Don't just keep this to yourself. And then also, whenever you like the video, it does something to the algorithm where then it helps push it out so then more people can see it, which I'd really appreciate because I think that more people need to just love themselves. So we can just raise the energy collectively, and then they can also get this healing energy session. So, again, just let me know what was something that came through for you. It was aha, I'd love to know. And again, if you are interested in a coaching session with me, your first one is free. To maybe work through something that you need help with, maybe letting past trauma go or achieving a goal. Or if you want a paid Reiki session, then just message me. I'd love to help. And otherwise, I hope you have an amazing day. Okay, bye.